Welcome to the realm of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Enjoy listening. Mark Harris had never heard his door knocked so aggressively. As the CEO of a prominent corporation and a member of one of the wealthiest families in the world, he was unaccustomed to such audacity. Anger flared in his chest as he shouted, "Come in!" While rising from his chair, the heavy wooden door creaked open and two women stepped inside. Mark froze, his sharp mind unable to make sense of the situation before him. The first woman wasted no time. "Do you remember me?" she asked, her voice tinged with a mix of defiance and urgency. Mark remained silent, unwilling to dignify the question with a response. His pride and ego dictated that engaging with strangers who barged into his office was beneath him. But her persistence grated on him. "Do you remember me?" she repeated, louder this time. Mark finally snapped. "No, I don't," he barked. The woman smirked, clearly unfazed by his irritation. "How convenient," she said. "I'm Zara." Mark's confusion deepened. The name rang no bells, and yet Zara spoke as if they had history. Her companion remained silent, observing everything with an eerie calm. Her long platinum hair and statuesque frame were striking, but her quiet demeanor intrigued him even more. Yet Mark's thoughts were interrupted by Zara's escalating indignation. "You really don't remember?" she demanded. "We met a year ago at that space-themed bar. You spent the entire evening with me. Made promises." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Promises that you never kept." Mark frowned, struggling to recall. He vaguely remembered the bar, a place he had visited during a business trip, but everything else was a blur. "What exactly are you accusing me of?" he asked. Zara's voice grew sharper. "You told me that if I found someone to join me, you would marry us both. You said you wanted a partnership unlike any other. I believed you, Mark. I spent the past year searching for someone, and now here we are." Mark's disbelief turned to a mix of annoyance and faint guilt. He did remember saying something absurd that night, spurred by the ambience and too many drinks. But the notion that she had taken it seriously was baffling. "If it's money you want, take it," he said curtly. "Go to my vault and help yourselves. Just leave me out of your fantasies." Zara's eyes blazed with fury. "Do you think this is about money?" she hissed. "Do you think you can buy your way out of everything?" Before Mark could respond, Zara gestured toward her companion. "This is Luna. She's the one I've chosen. Tell me, Mark, will you betray her too?" Luna's serene expression faltered slightly as she glanced at Mark, then back at Zara. Her discomfort was palpable, yet she said nothing. Mark's irritation gave way to curiosity as he studied Luna. There was something enigmatic about her, a quiet strength that contrasted sharply with Zara's fiery demeanor. "Fine," Mark said finally, exhaling sharply. "If you insist on discussing this, meet me at my estate tonight. We'll settle this once and for all." Satisfied, Zara nodded, and without another word, the two women left. Mark leaned back in his chair, the weight of the encounter settling over him. What had he gotten himself into? That evening, as the grand doors of his luxurious mansion swung open, Mark found Zara and Luna standing on the marble steps. Zara's eyes darted around, taking in the grandeur, while Luna remained composed, her gaze steady but observant. Mark greeted them with cold formality. "Come in," he said. "But remember, this is just a conversation. Nothing more." Zara smirked as she stepped inside. "Are you sure?" she teased. "Because I'm not." The women's eyes widened as they entered the opulent hall. Ornate chandeliers cast a warm glow over priceless artwork and antique furniture. Zara's awe was fleeting, quickly replaced by her usual defiance. Luna, however, lingered on the details, her eyes betraying a fleeting longing. "So this is how you live," Zara said, her voice laced with sarcasm. "And you thought we came here for money?" Mark crossed his arms. "What do you want, Zara? Be specific." Zara's playful facade vanished. "I want you to honor your word. You promised a future, a partnership. Don't think you can dismiss me so easily." Mark's patience wore thin. That was drunk talk. "It meant nothing. It meant everything to me." Zara shot back. "You can't just erase it." As their argument escalated, Mark couldn't help but glance at Luna. She stood quietly, her face calm, but her eyes thoughtful. Finally, he turned to her. "Why are you here?" he asked. "What's your role in all this?" Luna hesitated before answering. "Zara convinced me that I needed this, an escape from my monotonous life. She said I was wasting away, and perhaps she was right. But now—" Her voice trailed off, leaving an air of mystery that only deepened Mark's interest. "You're not like her," he said, his voice softening. "Why do you follow her lead?" Before Luna could respond, Zara interrupted. "She's here because I made her see the truth. We both deserve more, Mark. And you're going to give it to us?" Mark sighed, rubbing his temples. "Stay the night," he said at last. "We'll talk more in the morning." As the mansion fell silent, Mark found himself restless. On his way to the bathroom, he noticed a shadow in the corridor. It was Luna, her tall frame unmistakable in the dim light. "What are you doing up?" he asked. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Just thinking." "Come to my room," he said impulsively. "We need to talk." Moments later, they sat across from each other in the dimly lit room. Mark studied her, intrigued by her calm demeanor. "Why did you let Zara drag you into this?" Luna hesitated before replying. "I've always been quiet, reserved. Zara saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. She offered me an escape from my routine. But now—" She looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not sure anymore." Mark reached out, his hand brushing hers. "You're different," he said. "And I mean that in the best way." The intensity of his gaze made Luna's heart race. As the night wore on, their conversation deepened, breaking down walls neither realized they had. When Mark kissed her forehead, a warmth spread through her that she had never known. The next morning, Zara's fury was palpable when she discovered Luna in Mark's room. Bursting in, she found them intertwined, the evidence of their intimacy unmistakable. "How could you?" Zara screamed, her voice echoing through the mansion. Luna rose gracefully, her expression calm but resolute. "This isn't about you, Zara. It never was." Zara's face twisted in rage and hurt. "You betrayed me." Luna stepped closer, her voice steady. "No, Zara. You betrayed yourself by clinging to a promise that was never real. Let go. Find your own path." Mark watched silently as Zara stormed out, her figure disappearing into the morning light. He turned to Luna, a newfound respect and admiration in his eyes. The silence in the room was heavy, only broken by the soft rustle of the curtains as a gentle breeze slipped through the slightly open window. Mark took a deep breath, steadying himself before speaking. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice low. "You don't have to say anything," Luna replied, her tone calm but firm. She straightened her posture, her presence somehow both serene and commanding. "Zara's gone. Whatever happens next is between us now." Mark nodded, his gaze lingering on Luna. "I owe you an apology," he said finally, "for being dragged into this mess, for being caught up in something that had nothing to do with you." Luna's expression softened, but her voice remained steady. "I'm not here to blame you, Mark. I came because Zara insisted, and I stayed because I wanted to see for myself who you are." Mark arched an eyebrow, intrigued by her words. "And what do you see?" Luna tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. "Someone who's used to controlling every aspect of his life, but is finally realizing he can't control everything," she said simply. "Someone who's learning what it means to be vulnerable." Her words struck a chord in Mark, and he found himself unable to look away from her. There was a depth to Luna that both unsettled and fascinated him. "Vulnerable isn't something I'm good at," he admitted with a wry smile. "But you have a way of making it seem less terrifying." Luna didn't respond immediately, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, perhaps understanding, perhaps empathy. She stepped closer, the space between them shrinking until Mark could feel the warmth of her presence. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said softly, "but I won't let you hurt me either." Mark nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Fair enough," he said, "but I think it's only fair I make something clear too." Luna raised an eyebrow, waiting for him to continue. "You intrigue me," he admitted. More than I expected, more than I probably should let myself admit. And I don't know where this is going. But I want to find out. For the first time, Luna's stoic demeanor softened into a genuine smile. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it lit up her face in a way that made Mark's breath catch. He felt his chest tighten, not with anxiety but with something unfamiliar, a kind of calm warmth he hadn't experienced in years. Luna's presence was a contradiction, soothing yet challenging, and it drew him in like a tide he couldn't resist. Mark stepped closer, his voice softer now, as though speaking any louder would break the delicate spell between them. "Luna," he began, searching for the right words. "I've spent so much time building walls around me. This house, this life, they're all just extensions of that. But somehow, you walked in here, and those walls don't feel as solid anymore." Luna's smile lingered, but there was a flicker of caution in her eyes. She crossed her arms lightly, as if trying to shield herself from the weight of his words. "You don't know me, Mark," she said, her tone even. "Not really. Whatever connection you think we have, it's complicated." Mark tilted his head, studying her. "Maybe it is," he conceded. "But I want to understand. I want to know you, Luna. The real you. Not just the woman who stood silently in Zara's shadow, or the one who's mastered the art of saying so much without speaking. I want to know who you are when no one else is watching." Luna's gaze faltered for a moment, as if his words had pierced through her carefully constructed armor. She took a step back, her hands falling to her sides. "You make it sound so easy," she said quietly. "But people like us, we don't just let others in. Not without a reason. Not without knowing it's safe." Mark nodded, understanding her hesitation. "I'm not asking for everything at once," he said. "Just to start. Let me earn that trust, Luna." For a long moment, the room was silent, save for the faint rustling of leaves outside. Luna turned toward the window, her profile illuminated by the soft morning light. Her voice, when she spoke, was almost a whisper. "I've spent most of my life in the background, Mark. Watching, observing, avoiding risks. It's easier that way. Safer. But with you, I don't know. It feels different." Mark stepped beside her, his hands resting lightly on the windowsill. "Different isn't always bad," he said. "Sometimes it's exactly what we need." Luna turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "You say that now," she said. "But what happens when things get messy? When I'm no longer the quiet, mysterious woman who keeps to herself?" Mark met her gaze, his own unwavering. "Then I'll face it. Because I'd rather deal with the mess than lose the chance to know you." The sincerity in his voice seemed to disarm her, and for the first time, Luna allowed herself to relax. She let out a soft sigh, as though releasing some of the weight she carried. "You don't give up easily, do you?" she asked, a hint of amusement in her tone. Mark chuckled, a rare, genuine laugh that surprised even himself. "Not when it matters," he said, "and I think you might matter more than I realized." Luna looked down, her fingers tracing an invisible pattern on the windowsill. She wasn't used to this, being seen, being wanted, being pursued without ulterior motives. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. "All right," she said, finally, her voice steady. "I'll give this, whatever this is, a chance. But on one condition." Mark raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Name it." Luna turned to him fully, her gaze piercing. "No lies. No games. If this is going to work, it has to be real." Mark extended a hand, a small smile playing on his lips. "Deal." Luna hesitated for a heartbeat before shaking his hand, the touch brief but electric. In that moment, something shifted between them, a tentative beginning, fragile yet filled with promise. As the sunlight grew brighter, casting its warmth over the room, Mark and Luna stood side by side, both aware that the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, neither of them felt entirely alone.